Good morning. Today we are starting a new unit, if I can talk, about the decision-making process and how we make decisions and what affects our decisions and stuff like that. So, first things first, let's do our bell ringer, like always. Today we will begin to study the decision-making process, list all the decisions that you have made so far today. So that's your bell ringers, to list every single decision you've made up to this point today, and you should have a lot of them. So people make many decisions in a day, some easy and some more difficult. Today's lesson will help you learn the process of making a decision, which can make tough decisions easier. So now let's hit read first. So our objectives and standards right here, and then we did our bell ringer in red. Okay, so now think about the following questions and answer them as quickly as possible. So like 3 seconds, okay? What show will you watch on television tonight? What color should you choose for a new car? If you found money, what would you do with it? If your dog were very ill, would you put it to sleep or spend as much money as possible to cure it? So you can see that as those questions went on, they got more difficult. So 3 seconds is kind of a hard amount of time to answer. If you found money, what would you do with it? Or if your dog was sick, what would you do? So think about the process you take to answer questions. So how did you decide to wear your hair like that today? What was the process that it took you to decide, oh, I'm going to straighten it? Or how did you choose your after-school job? What process did you use to choose that? So what made some decisions easy and what made some decisions more difficult? Would it have helped to know what your friends think about the situation and why? If you had more information, would the choice have been easier? And what kind of information would you like to have had about all of those? Consequences usually make decisions difficult. Often, the more significant the consequences, the more difficult the decision. So, what show will we watch on TV tonight? There's not really any consequence that goes along with deciding what to watch on TV. But there are consequences with how much, if you found money, what would you do with it? And if your dog was sick, what would you do? There are big consequences for those. What other factors influence your decisions, like peer pressure, your personal beliefs, the opinions of someone you respect? Steps of the decision-making process are: define the issue. So ask yourself the question, what decision do you have to make? List the options. So what possible actions could you take? Weigh the consequences. So what are the pros and cons? Literally make a pros and cons list. Consider your values. What is important to you? Decide and act. So explain what you're going to do. Describe what your decision is. And evaluate the choice. So how do you feel about the action you took? Did you make a good decision? Would you take a different action if faced with the same decision again or the same scenario again? And what did you learn? So the last step could result in returning to the first step to rework the decision. Decision making can be a recursive process. That just means that it can be repetitive. You might have to repeat a step a few times. And like I just said, sometimes one must return to the beginning of the process or repeat a step several times. Okay, so now let's do our let's decide assignment. So let's decide. And the directions are in here. Make sure you're highlighting your answers. Oh, let me go ahead and make that where we can see it better. Yes, make sure you highlight your answers, and we're going to list each step of the decision-making process under each scenario. And then I relisted the decision-making process right here so that it's easier for you to see. And I kind of already put it right here, okay? So number 1, I'll do with you, and then you can do the other 5 because there's 6 total. Yeah, 6 total. You can do the rest by yourself, okay? So your goal is to make the school track team. To do that, you feel you need to run after school every day. 2 friends, Caesar and Aaron, constantly put down your efforts. They're making fun of you for practicing, for working hard. One afternoon, they walk up just as you're getting ready for your run. They laugh together about you and then say they are going to the park to hang out and ask you to join them. How do you make your decision? So define the issue. What is the issue? So I think you could see several small issues that don't really have anything to do with the question. How do you make your decision about whether or not you go with them or not? So, because you could argue or have an issue with, are Caesar and Aaron really good friends or not? But that doesn't have anything to do about whether or not you go to the park unless that is a solution of not going to the park with them because of that. So defining the issue. So it's up here, it says, what decision do you have to make? So the issue is you have to decide whether or not you're going to the park with Aaron and Caesar. That's the issue. That's the problem, is do I go to the park or not? List the options. Yes, you could go and miss out on your run, or yes, you could go and run later, or you can say, no, I'm going to run, or you can say, ask no, will you wait for me and we'll go after my run? Maybe I'll cut my run in half so that we can go. Weigh the consequences. If you don't run, you're not practicing and you're slacking on your goal of making the school track team. You could, if you do go, maybe if they're laughing at you already, they're not going to be very nice to you when you get there. Let's see. Am I missing any? I'm sure I'm missing some, but you get it. So consider your values. What's important to make the school track team, or hang out with your friends? Which one is better here? And the very first sentence of this problem is your goal is to make the school track team. And if Aaron and Caesar were your real friends, then they probably would be fine with you skipping out on this one time of them going to the park. Then you have to decide and act. So then you can put there what you would do. Do you go to the park with your friends, or do you stay and practice and run for practice? Okay, so then you're just going to do that, type all of that out for all of these scenarios. Okay, then I have a few more things. Okay, so we're going to do a group class project as a class, and this is going to be a little bit more difficult for those of you online. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a discussion post for the class project so you can put your input since you're not here in class to give input, okay? So how we're going to do this in class is I'm going to have a little sheet. No, that's not right. Okay, here. So we're going to start a project that we're going to work through the entire unit, okay? So we are not just doing it today. It's going to be the entire decision-making process unit, okay? So, excuse me, I'm sorry. So we have this scenario, and then we have to make a decision on it today, okay? So to keep in mind before we get started, what qualities are important to us? I guess I can read that after. I'll just read the scenario. I'm sorry. Okay, so our scenario is your group is composed of members of a federal agency in Washington, D.C. That's us. We are a federal agency in Washington, D.C. that is in charge of running fallout shelters in the far outposts of civilization. Suddenly, World War III breaks out, and nuclear bombs begin dropping, destroying places all over the globe, the whole world. People are heading for whatever fallout shelters are available, and you receive a desperate call from one of your stations asking for help. So someone's working at one of our stations. A group shows up. They need help, so they call us because we are the federal agency. It seems that 10 people have arrived looking for shelter, but there's only enough space, food, and water in the fallout shelter for 6 people for a period of 3 months. And 3 months is the amount of time that they have to stay underground before they can safely leave. They realize that if they have to decide among themselves which 6 should go to the shelter, they're likely to become irrational and begin fighting. So they've decided to call your department and leave the decision to you, and they will abide by your decision. So as a class, we're going to make the decision about which of the 10 people get to stay in the shelter and who has to go and hopefully find another shelter, may not make it through World War III. Okay, so as a group, you have to consider 4 people. Some things to consider. It is possible that the 6 people you choose to stay in the shelter might be the only 6 people left to continue the human race. So this is a big decision. You, the federal agency group, must make the decision, no examples. Our job is to carefully define the problem. So in the discussion that I'm going to open up, you need to define the problem for our group, and then after that, ask yourself these questions. What difficulties did you encounter when you wrote the definition for a problem? And why is it necessary to have a clear definition of a problem when you were making a decision? Okay, I think that's all I have for today. Let's just double check. Oh, no, we have our assessment. Well, let me make sure I read all the things. Sorry, I'm kind of all over the place today. Okay, let's go over our key points. We make decisions all day, every day, and some are more difficult than others. Decisions are influenced by many factors, including beliefs and values, and following the decision-making process results in the best decisions. A clear definition of the problem leads to a better understanding of the issue. Okay, so our assessment today, I think it's 3 questions. Okay, what factors can make some decisions more difficult than others? And we already talked about how consequences make our decisions difficult. List 3 factors that influence the decisions you make, and then list the steps of the decision-making process in order. And those last 2 questions, the answers are in the read first. So make sure you read that, and then you'll be good to go. If you have any questions, make sure you email me, let me know. I hope you're happy and healthy, and I hope to see you soon. Bye.